Hey guys, Level Cap here. Today we're going to be talking about the Farquhar-Hill Medic DMR for Battlefield 1 that's available in the Turning Tides DLC. This is definitely one of the more usable primary weapons in this DLC. It has two versions, the Storm version and the optical version. I personally prefer the Storm version. I think it's easier to control, but the iron sights are a little tricky to work with. Now what's interesting about this rifle is that it's got a 20 round, really cool looking drum style magazine. Its rate of fire is not particularly fast at about 250 rounds per minute. It puts it in the slower DPS category of medic rifles, but it tries to make up for that in its general versatility. Now first things first, to unlock this weapon you need to get 25 kills with the M1907 SL Trench version, which is not a particularly great medic rifle, but it's only 25 kills, and then you need to get 10 revives in a round, which should be pretty easy. If you're a good player, you should be able to do that in one round, and then you've got this decent medic rifle. The second tier of this one, the optical variant, you need to actually get some kills with the first tier, so you can't get the optical variant until you unlock this variant. Now, when I pop up the simthic.com stats here, I noticed and was not surprised by the fact that the damage on this weapon drops off to 30. I was noticing in game that I was getting 4-shot kills on players at really far ranges. Basically anything beyond 50 meters, you're going to need 4 shots to down somebody unless you mix a headshot in there. 4-shot kills are certainly doable, but it's a very slow time to kill, and you're going to need to make sure that your opponent doesn't have time to get behind cover, because it's going to take you some time to land all 4 of those shots at 50 plus meters with iron sights, especially on a moving target. Again, doable, but not ideal. I would recommend generally using this weapon at under 50 meters for maximum benefit. It does, however, have a very fast muzzle velocity of 800 meters per second, so you're not going to have to lead too much with this weapon, and it becomes easier to land your shots. Its accuracy is also pretty decent. Of course, it's being held back by the somewhat fat front post on the iron sights, making it, I found, very difficult to hit even stationary targets at extreme distances, because I wasn't able to figure out where exactly on the front post I needed to aim. So again, the iron sights are not ideal, but in closer range engagements, they're certainly usable. The weapon also has pretty controllable recoil, especially given a slightly slower rate of fire. Its hipfire accuracy is not particularly great, so I wouldn't rely on it too heavily, only when somebody is right in your face. And even then, it's not all that great. ADS whenever possible. Now this gun seems to be really sort of focused into a medium range niche. It's got enough ammo to deal with really spam firing this weapon at targets at medium range. Close quarters, it can certainly be used, but you're not going to get any benefits by using this over, say, the Fedorov Avtomat. That is clearly going to be one of the best close quarter medic rifles. Then we've got some better long range medic rifles like the Mondragon Sniper, which can 3-shot at range and has scoped optics and stuff like that. So it's not going to outperform at extreme ranges, and it's not going to outperform in close range, but it does decently in all of those areas. So on the versatility scale, it's certainly not a bad weapon, and having 20 rounds in a magazine is quite nice for a medic rifle. Since you're so limited with your damage output on most SLR rifles in this game, this one is not limiting you. You can get a kill, get another kill, even get another kill after that before you need to think about reloading. So you can definitely get some work done with this weapon, especially if you start mixing some headshots in there, which are not always so easy to do with iron sights. In fact, unlocking the optical variant of this requires you to mix a few headshots in there with this weapon, and that could take you some time. I think I had like maybe 200 plus kills with this gun before I had 25 headshot kills. And although I haven't really used the optical variant since the CTE version, I know I don't really like it that much. There's just something about optical weapons in this game that add a little bit too much sway when you're first aiming down sights that usually throws me off. So I wasn't a big fan of the optical variant. I am much preferring the Storm variant, as the iron sights are at least usable enough. Also, somebody said buckhorn iron sights make this gun a bit more accurate. I haven't been able to test that out yet, but it could be something to try out. Now, I'm sensing a little bit of a theme shift with the weapon design in this DLC. I made a previous video where I said I didn't really like any of the weapons in this DLC, and that I didn't find any of them really viable replacements for my favorite weapons for each class. For the most part, I still believe that, but I am beginning to understand sort of the theme of this DLC and some of the benefits of these weapons a little bit more. And that is that I think many of them are designed around the idea of sustained damage. This one has a 20-round magazine. There's that great new Browning machine gun that has 250 rounds, and then the Assault gets a little carbine that has 41 rounds. The damage per second isn't going to be extreme on any of these weapons. You're not going to out DPS anybody, but you'll be able to output sustained fire, which means if you're going up against mediocre players or you're getting flanks on people, dishing out damage without accepting any return fire, you can actually do a lot of damage. And I think that's where people are going to get the most enjoyment out of this weapon. It's not going to be a competitive gun. It's not going to be something you're going to want to take into new Battlefield 1's new competitive game mode, or when you're going up against extremely skilled players, you might get frustrated with this gun. But in general, all-purpose, all-around gameplay, this one is okay. It's not terribly balanced. You can actually sustain your damage for long enough, and if you're working with other players where you are not the primary target of fire, you can put out a decent amount of damage just because you're not having to reload as often as you would with most other SLRs. And for that reason, you could certainly pick up the Farquhar-Hill and say, you know what, this gun kicks ass. I really like it. You might have some really kick-ass rounds with this weapon because, to be honest, playing in a big, casual, open map of Battlefield 1, you're going to run into a lot of mediocre players. You're going to get a lot of decent flanking opportunities, and that's where the 20 rounds are going to come in handy. It's not a terrible weapon, especially at medium range where it's most powerful, but at the extremes, that's where the Farquhar-Hill starts to lose its impact. Extreme close range and extreme long range, you're just going to start losing out to people with weapons that are significantly better suited for those engagement distances. Counter sniping is probably one of the more aggravating things you can do with this weapon, which is something that I generally enjoy doing with SLRs because you can kind of dance around a little bit and put some accurate shots down range. Like the Mondragon Sniper is a great counter sniping SLR. But this one here, you got to stand still. You got to put 4 shots into him at range. If that sniper isn't putting a headshot back on you in quick time, then they're not a very good sniper. So it's a very difficult counter sniping SLR. And oddly enough, I think that the 2 new Turning Tides maps are not really ideal locations for this weapon. I found it much more effective on more infantry focused but open maps. So when I was playing earlier on Suez Canal, I found that easier. If you take this weapon over to Achibaba, that map with the trench warfare requires high damage in close quarters and good peeking ability, both things that this weapon does not have. At extreme ranges, it's going to fall out, so you have a little bit of mid-range opportunity here and there, but for the most part, that's not really an ideal map for this weapon. Then you take a look at this map, Cape Hell or Cape Helles, and it's mostly long-range combat. There's a little bit of medium-range combat, but I found myself really preferring to use a bolt-action sniper rifle for the long-range combat here, as the Farquhar just wasn't really suited for it. So I have a feeling that many people trying these weapons out for the first time are going to be trying them out on the new Turning Tides maps and maybe not enjoying them as much as they would be if they were using them on maps that were better suited. I'm actually quite excited to take these weapons into vanilla Battlefield 1 maps and see how they fare. And even with the 2 new maps coming in January, maybe they'll fare a bit better on those map designs. And now we're watching footage of me using the SMLE Marksman and doing considerably better with it than I was with the Farquhar, only because I ran out of ammo with the Farquhar and had to pick this thing up. Now, if you're one of those players who hasn't purchased the DLC for this game yet or doesn't have premium and you're thinking about it, but based on the weapon selection and whether or not it's worthwhile upgrading to the Turning Tides DLC, I wouldn't say that the Farquhar is one of those weapons that's really going to make you go, man, I need this DLC because this is such a cool medic weapon and it's really going to change my medic gameplay. You can replicate this gameplay with many other medic rifles out there. The Subsoldater 1916 can perform very similarly to this weapon in most scenarios. And frankly, the Fedorov Automat from the Russian DLC is such a good medic weapon. That would have been one of the weapons I would say, yeah, get the DLC for that gun alone because it's so good. But this gun here, it's fun. It's got some cool little perks to it. I like the way that it looks with the drum magazine, the reload animation, all that stuff. But it's not going to be one of those weapons that you're going to say, oh man, he only beat me because he had the amazing Farquhar. Nobody's ever going to say that, and if they did, they would be wrong. Anyway, that kind of wraps it up for this Farquhar weapon review. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you think of the weapon in the comments below. And I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap, signing up.